In 1990, if you walked into any football club on earth and asked the manager how his team would line up, 9 out of 10 would give you the same answer: 4-4-2. It was the language everyone spoke. A back four, a midfield four, 2 strikers up top. So simple, a child could draw it on a napkin. So effective, it conquered the world. And yet, if you watched the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, you would have struggled to find a single team brave enough to use it. Somewhere along the way, the most popular formation in the history of the sport quietly died. The question is, who killed it? To understand the death, you first have to understand why it ruled for so long. The beauty of the 4-4-2 was its symmetry. 2 banks of 4, moving side to side like a wall, swallowing space, leaving nowhere to run. 2 strikers who always had a partner, so no forward ever felt alone. Every player knew exactly where he was supposed to be. It was order. It was discipline. It was a machine. England built their identity on it. The great AC Milan side of the late 80s perfected it. And at international level, it became the safe, sensible default, the formation you picked when you didn't want to lose. For years, it worked, because everybody else was playing it too. When 2 teams line up 4 against 4 in midfield, the math is balanced, and the game becomes a fair fight. But football is not a sport that stands still. Somewhere, someone always asks a dangerous question. What if I could win the fight in the middle of the pitch before it even started? And that question was the first crack in the wall. The problem with the 4-4-2 was hiding in plain sight all along. The midfield. 4 players, yes, but 2 of them, the wide men, spent half the game pinned to the touchline. So when the ball reached the center of the park, where games are truly won and lost, you really only had 2 central midfielders. 2. And what happens when the other team puts 3 there instead? Suddenly, your 2 men are chasing shadows, always a step behind, always outnumbered. The wall that looked so solid had a hole right through its heart. For decades, nobody exploited it ruthlessly enough. Then came a generation of thinkers who did. The first assassin arrived from Spain. In 2010, Spain walked into the World Cup with a formation that looked like a 4-3-3, but in truth was something stranger: a swarm. They flooded the middle with technical, patient midfielders who passed the ball in tiny triangles, around and around, until the opposition simply gave up trying to win it back. They called it tiki-taka. Against a flat 4-4-2, it was murder. The 2-man midfield could not press them, could not catch them, could not even touch the ball. Spain didn't beat teams, they starved them. They won the World Cup, conceding only 2 goals in the entire tournament, and the football world watched and learned a brutal lesson. If you bring 2 midfielders to a 3-midfielder fight, you lose. But Spain only proved the 4-4-2 could be outnumbered. The next attackers proved it could be outsmarted. Around the same time, a strange idea began spreading through Europe. What if you played without a striker at all? The false 9. A forward who, instead of staying up against the 2 centre-backs, dropped deep into midfield. Now the defenders faced an impossible choice. Follow him, and you leave a hole in the back line for runners to attack. Stay, and you let him collect the ball in space and dictate the entire game. The 4-4-2's neat, predictable shape relied on knowing where everyone would be. The false 9 made the most important player on the pitch impossible to find. And then came the loudest killer of all, pressing. The old 4-4-2 was built to defend its shape. Drop back, stay compact, wait. But a new wave of coaches decided that was cowardice. Why wait for the ball when you could hunt it? They taught their teams to swarm the opponent the instant they lost possession. 6 or 7 players closing in like wolves, winning the ball high up the pitch and scoring before the defense could even blink. They called it gegenpressing. Against this storm, the 2 banks of 4 were too slow, too rigid, too far apart. By the time the wall reorganized, the ball was already in the net. Football had gotten faster, angrier, more chaotic, and the 4-4-2 was built for a calmer age. So the managers adapted, and the formation evolved into things the old guard barely recognized. 3 at the back, with wing-backs flying up and down the entire length of the field. A lone striker, supported by attacking midfielders drifting between the lines. Fluid systems where numbers changed depending on whether you had the ball or not. A back 4 in defense that became a back 3 in attack. The same 11 men wearing 2 completely different shapes in a single move. Football stopped being a static formation and became a living, breathing thing. The 4-4-2 had no answer for that, because the 4-4-2 was a photograph in a world that had started moving. Look at the recent World Cups, and you can read the story like a tombstone. In 2014, Germany won by overloading midfield and pressing relentlessly. In 2018, France won with a flexible, athletic system that morphed shape constantly. In 2022, Argentina lifted the trophy with Lionel Messi roaming freely, untethered to any fixed position, while the team reshaped itself around him minute by minute. Not one of these champions trusted 2 flat banks of 4. The greatest stage in the sport had delivered its verdict, and the verdict was clear. And yet, here is the twist. The 4-4-2 is not truly dead. It is sleeping. Because every few years, when one team's clever, complicated, fluid system meets another that simply defends with discipline, stays compact, and refuses to break, that old wall rises from its grave. Underdog teams still use it to frustrate the giants, to soak up pressure, to steal a goal and hold on for dear life. The very simplicity that made it die against the best is exactly what makes it survive for the rest. It is no longer the king of football, but it is still the loyal soldier you call when you need to survive a war. So, who killed the 4-4-2? Not one assassin, but many. Spain starved it. The false 9 confused it. The pressing teams overwhelmed it. And modern, fluid football made it look like a relic. But the truth is, the 4-4-2 didn't really die. Football just grew up around it. It was the formation that taught the world order, and the world repaid it by learning to break that order in 100 new ways. The next time you watch a World Cup, look closely at the shapes on the pitch. They will twist, shift, and dissolve in front of your eyes. And somewhere in that chaos, if you look hard enough, you will still see the ghost of 2 banks of 4. The formation that conquered the world, died 1,000 deaths, and somehow refuses to disappear completely.